Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rob Makalek from MasterMine Software. I'd like to welcome you all to our MasterMine end user webinar this afternoon on deduping GoldMine with an assist from MasterMine. And as many of you are attending today probably are well aware from our end user meetings, this is a series which is meant to help you make better use of your MasterMine generally, which of course means making better use of GoldMine itself. This session is being recorded, will be made available to you also so that you can share it with your colleagues later on if you so choose. Okay, I'm going to apologize right up front here that I've got a bit of a froggy voice today, and I'm just going to try to keep my throat clear without doing too much unnecessary noise making on my side here. All right, so let's dive in, because deduping is a kind of a huge issue for a lot of people who use CRM generally, and it has many different meanings for different kinds of different kinds of GoldMine people who organize and use GoldMine, but also for I'm going to say for different organizations as well as individuals within each organization. So let's go on here. Just a quick comment about MasterMine. This is just sort of a kind of a reminder. MasterMine, if you think about how MasterMine works with your GoldMine, it of course marries Excel and GoldMine, as you know. And we're going to be talking about how how reports as well as the data manipulation aspects of MasterMine help you prepare with your GoldMine. So that's kind of what, this topic really hits on all three really of the main aspects of MasterMine itself and how it helps you with GoldMine management. So quickly, the agenda for today, the structure of the presentation here I'm going to go for is essentially to talk a little bit about the merge purge wizard that's built into GoldMine, which has a lot to do with the ways in which that we're going to recommend using MasterMine to facilitate better GoldMine data. So we're not, for the most part, we can certainly use MasterMine, and we do all the time, use MasterMine all by itself to improve GoldMine data quality. But specifically with regard to merging and purging, GoldMine does have this wonderful tool or set of tools built in that I will make reference to quite a number of times here. So I'm going to actually talk about the merge purge wizard and show it fairly briefly. I'll assume that you know a lot about it. But what we're really aiming for here is to talk about how we can use MasterMine by dealing with common data quality issues in GoldMine to make it so that that merge purge wizard actually delivers better results. Essentially, if the idea is if you're preparing your data better in advance, then GoldMine itself, the built-in GoldMine tools are going to work better for you in dealing with this. So that's the idea. It's essentially the merge purge tool works better if the data is normalized, if it's fixed before running it through the merge purge tool, especially if it's done with some anticipation about how the merge purge wizard is going to work in terms of how it matches data and so forth. So our agenda basically is go through the merge purge wizard, talk about data quality issues and preparation tips, and then give you a chance to ask some questions at the end. Now, before I dive in here, I'm actually going to we've got a quick poll here, which I'm going to bring up right now. And so you should be seeing that poll coming up here quickly. And what I want to do is have you think a little bit in advance about when merge purge or when deduping is an issue for you. In other words, sometimes for some organizations, it's just a kind of a quick, thing that we need to do once in a while so that we get the right information in front of our people. For a lot of people, it really focuses on the importing question. When we import data, how do we manage that data? And just make sure that we don't, in a sense, contaminate or mess up our database. For others, it's really, other organizations don't really do data imports all that often. You're really more dealing with the database as it stands, adding individual records here and there, maybe adding some additional ones based on either inquiries through the web or inquiries that come over the phone, or new prospects that you meet at trade shows. But it's really, for some, in other words, for some it's a fairly small trickle of new data. For others, your whole business is built around essentially renewing the entire database of prospects, I don't know, once a year. In which case there's a lot probably of data management that needs to happen there. So I want you to think about it in all of these cases. And I gave you some options to include at the bottom there, and we're not really being facetious there. We really want to get a sense of, if this doesn't really apply to you, that's one thing. But if essentially your data needs management, and you have not felt that you've got the either the skills in-house to handle it, we can help you get to it. Or if it's really just a case of training that's needed, that's another issue. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll here with that long explanation about what all this means, give you a sense of how your fellow users out there are dealing with this merge purge situation. And I'm seeing that we're kind of evenly split, pretty close to evenly split between dealing with merge purges after imports, and those who are not as concerned with the import as such, but kind of managing the database periodically. We add up to well over 100% here because you could choose more than one here. But that gives you a sense of sort of where you as a user group are kind of working here. Topic-wise, I'm going to deal here more with the question of merge purge of the existing database, although I will certainly make reference to the importing issue and so forth. So let's get to the meat of what we want to talk about here. I'm going to hide that poll. And let's talk a little bit about advanced planning. So
Rob, we lost your screen.
You lost my screen, okay.
Yep.
Alrighty. Did the I think I know what happened here. That means you probably didn't see the agenda thing at all at the beginning as well. So, but that's okay. So advanced planning. Getting your ducks in a row, so to speak, in preparation for doing a doing a data duplication management. Requires a little bit of thinking ahead. And the first thing, of course, is understanding exactly what's in the database. Your MasterMine reports should help you a lot with that, but you want to do this in a way where you plan a little bit of time and creativity to apply to the issue of understanding what it is that you've actually got in the database. And the two really main questions are, first, of course, what do you actually have in the existing data? How just complete it is, and so on. But the second is really how much de-duping do you want to do, or do you need to do, in support of your business goals? Again, this has to do with your market and how you approach it, your unique business, in other words, but also kind of the style of how the work gets done. If I've seen enough organizations where the salespeople themselves don't really care that much about the data quality, but the people who are in marketing care a great deal, and the people who own the company care more still, and yet the quality of the data and the thinking about what goes in on a day-to-day basis is really with that first group, the people who are actually the salespeople who are working with the database at the beginning of the cycle, so to speak. So with that in mind, you want to think about what do you actually have in the data, what are the requirements, and then involve the stakeholders. In other words, it's not just about what does one lowly person who's in the IT department, pardon me if you're in the IT department, but I'm one of them, one lowly person in the IT department deciding what level of quality do we need for our database. You really this needs to be driven by sales management, by marketing management, and really by the executive level of the company. Another thing to bear in mind, and this is unfortunately something that IT people tend to know but others don't, is that a de-duping process is not just a figure out how to do it, hit the button, and then your database is deduped. It requires a great deal of human intervention. And it's going to require a lot of iterations. So this is all things that you need to think about and make sure that everybody is clear on before you get started. And when I say many iterations, again, it's the merge purge process itself. There's, I will actually go through the merge purge wizard of GoldMine, but you need to know it's not just a case of, hey, we need to run that every 6 months and our data will be clean. It is something that really requires some hands-on active involvement. And then that is true both in terms of the one-off clean up your database project, as well as the long-term maintenance. Over time, your GoldMine data will need to be addressed from a deduping standpoint multiple times, maybe multiple times per year, maybe multiple times per week. That all needs to be brought into the process. So that's just kind of a reminder of probably of some things that you already know. Okay, so this is the real thing here. Let's get down to the merge purge of GoldMine. And again, I'm going to do this very quickly. I'm not going to go into the details. I'm going to assume that you can find other instruction on how to use the wizard, or you may already have your own experience with it. But we've got a lot of things to cover here, so I want to kind of just sort of show you this in a way to remind you of what the options are within the merge purge wizard. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the merge purge wizard. If you are not a master user in GoldMine, you may not have this option, but you definitely have somebody within your organization who does, who can do this. And so the wizard assumes that you have already done your preparation of the data, and I'm going to come back afterwards and talk about data preparation that makes this work better. But let's just quickly deal with the wizard itself. So we're going to run through the wizard here very quickly. So the first thing is, what population of records are we going to look at in the database? And this is an important distinction to be aware of with merge purge. So in some organizations, you're going to go ahead and look at all the contact records in the database, of course. In others, that's just not a practical issue. What you really want is, for those others, what you really want is to set this merge purge process that's going to look through here to look at a certain population of possible leads. This might be, all leads in your database that are more recent, that were entered more recently than a certain date. It could be that crude, or you could even be looking at all the ones that have, let's say, that are within a certain company or company structure of the that you market to. If you are the kind of company that really markets to, a limited set, maybe a dozen or fewer large corporations that you actually work within as your customers, you still want to be able to take, for example, all of the ones that are at IBM, if IBM is a major customer of yours, and get all the variations of IBM into the set, the purview, so to speak, of this wizard. So I will talk a little bit about filtering as just a means of setting the set of possible the population within which you're going to look for possible dupes. We'll come back to that, and I'll make reference to that. And of course, that within GoldMine is set by selecting either a filter or a group, and I won't go into the difference between those two. Important for you to know how those work, though. Okay, weighting. Now, weighting is the key to the merge purge process in GoldMine. And essentially, what you are doing is setting up here a set of criteria that determine what is a possible dupe and what is not. And so essentially, we could say, well, if the company names match exactly, or if the company names are pretty close and the phone numbers match, or the phone numbers are close, or various other creative ways of matching things up. So the merge purge wizard is actually able to set up a number of possible ways of comparing two records to identify whether they are a possible match. Look, I need to add one in here so that I can move on from here. So let's just go where the company name sounds very similar, and we'll include matching, the possibility that it actually matches empty. Actually, we won't include. So if the company is empty, we're not going to we're going to assume that we're looking at two different records that have an empty company field, and we're not going to match them up. Again, this is significant. I'll come back and refer to this. And in this case, let's say, actually, let's do two things. I'll make it be a 25% probability or a 25% weight on matching company, and a 25 or 26% weight on the phone number match phone. Okay. So, and note, by the way, we're talking about a particular phone field here. GoldMine has 3 possible phone fields, actually 4 if you include the fax, and that's going to be an issue. I'll come back to that. But so we'll need an exact match on those. Don't need to bother with case sensitive. Maybe include the possibility they might be empty, and we'll put 26% or 26, a weight of 26 on that. Now, my reason for doing this is that I want to create a situation where essentially if the company matches, sounds very similar, and the phone number is an exact match, then those two will weigh more than 51, or excuse me, more than 50. So we'll get a 51 on that, and that will result in the two being returned to you as potential matches. Now, this is a really, really quick run through on the merge purge. Again, I know that I'm going to expect that you have some knowledge of this already, but this weighting is something to take into consideration, of course, later on when we fix up our data. And of course, we can do different combinations of fields and different levels of weighting so that they work out. Okay, so with those criteria, then the other major issues are, of course, we're not going to necessarily always just arbitrarily choose one as a winner versus another, although we might. So to start with, on the assumption that we're not going to be prompting the user, in other words, we're actually just going to have it run through the entire database and make a decision about which match to include, or which match to count as the winner, then we want to set the criteria for what is counted as the winner. Is it the one that was created first? Is it the one that was updated last? Excuse me. Or do we want to actually merge the two of them together and keep the loser as the loser of the match, so to speak, as an additional contact in each record? In other words, you're actually going to bring the two together and make just one record out of it. Only. You have other sort of checkbox options to go with whatever you choose up here. Prompt me before merging records is the one that I'm really going to kind of focus on here, because essentially what that means is sorry, I want to correct myself a little bit. Up here I said keep one or keep the other. The third option here is actually that both records would continue to exist. They would just become additional contacts of each other, and that's why these are parallel choices up here. So pardon my backup there. The first option here is more to do with when you are not going to have a surviving record, do you keep the other one as an additional contact? That's not as important to me as the second one here. This is the key one. Prompt me before merging records. So in other words, don't just run through and do a mass merge purge. You especially don't want to do that if you are coming in raw with a really messy database. You might do an automatic one if you are already very close to a sort of a perfected database. But for the most part, or you have just an extremely large database and you really need for it to do some major kind of crude run-throughs of the database so that you just get down to a manageable set. But this last one here, prompt me before merging records, this is where you're actually going to be shown left and right, your two potentially matching records and given an option of choosing one or the other, or skip and leave both of them in there. Okay, so that's kind of the major thing that I wanted to show here. So when a duplicate record is found, you could just simply be deleting the duplicated record, or you might want to, or you might having it leave the record, the duplicate record in there, but update a field. In other words, put a value in there that just indicates you're going to be deleting this record, but you don't want to do it just yet. So that's the next option there. And you would, of course, save your profile and continue on with it. So I'm going to save this profile, but I think it's just, I'm just going to call it temp because I'm not planning to come back into the wizard. And I went ahead and actually ran it. So here, this is the side-by-side view of two records that are deemed to be possible duplicates, where you are given the choice of selecting, one is the as the save record and the other is not. Okay, so that's essentially the process, and I just wanted to quickly run through that to just establish our memory of what that looks like. So with that, I'm going to quickly switch back here here we go. All right, so data quality issues that relate to that merge purge wizard. And I apologize if I seem to be rushing through this, but again, we've got a lot of detail that I want to handle here. As we go along here, go ahead and post questions. Carnegie will keep an eye on the questions in the GoToWebinar dialog, and we can address them at the end or in a separate webinar. So given the way the wizard works, the way I just described it, there are some major data quality issues that need to be managed beforehand, and here we get to the real meat of it. So not just in terms of as you work with your data beforehand and you prepare it, it's not just in terms of do I have accurate data in my database, but you need to be thinking of it as it relates to that wizard in three different ways. The first is, of course, the filtering and grouping. In other words, does this record actually get looked at all by the wizard? If you are doing, let's say, a merge purge of records that are labeled prospect in your contact type field in GoldMine, then you're going to want to make sure that the contact type field itself has been cleaned up. In other words, you don't have a whole lot of typos in the contact field. You don't have some of them saying prospect and others saying suspect and others having misspellings of the word prospect and so on, because those that don't actually say the word prospect, if that's what you filtered on, are just simply not going to get looked at in the merge purge process. They're just going to be sitting there still. So later on, when the boss comes back and says, well, I thought we went through and purged the prospects or deduped them, and your answer is, well, I didn't see those ones because they didn't actually have anything in the contact type field, or it was misspelled, or it was a different way of saying it. That's going to be an issue. Secondly, matching the actual records. Of course, you need to have data. If you've got company fields that say IBM Corporation and International Business Machines and IBM Corp and IBM Inc., and you go and run your dedupe with that, those are not going to look like duplicates. If you even in a soundex, those are not going to sound like duplicates. So that's obviously a major consideration. And then the third one relates to that side-by-side comparison when you're actually looking at them. When you actually go to select a winner of which of the two are you going to include, you're going to want to have the data be accurate, not just in the fields that are deciding what's going to be matched, but also, if you think about it, your key fields are going to be really important. So if I'm looking at two records side by side, and the one on the left looks like it's actual accurate address information, but the one on the right has actual filled in contact type and the sales rep field and the industry that they're in and so on, then that could potentially cause some issues because when you go and select a winner, the one that you're destroying will only fill in fields for the one that you're keeping if the one that you're keeping has empty fields to fill them into. Otherwise, so in other words, your winner record is going to be the dominant one. And so that's a consideration that you want to have as you're doing your data preparation. To the extent that I can do this in advance, how can I duplicate the most, or make sure that the most important information or the most accurate information is in the ones that are likely to be my winners. my winner records, the ones that are going to be selected to keep. Okay, as you see, this gets to be a little bit of an arcane process, but I want to make sure that we're on the same page as far as what's important here. Okay, did I just go a little fast? No, I didn't. Okay, so housekeeping tips to start with. If you are primarily dealing with importing, or even if sometimes you're dealing with importing of data, a couple of the sort of key things that again you probably are aware of, but it's it's good to be reminded. It is probably best to normalize your data prior to importing it into the database, rather than thinking, well, we'll just throw it into the database and do a merge purge process. That merge purge process itself is probably going to involve the normalization. But if you've got it in Excel, or you've got it in some form that you can work with it prior to sending it in, I'm gonna say that in many cases, probably not everyone, but in many cases, a little bit of work prepping and normalizing the data before you import it is going to avoid a lot of difficulties that you will have with the data after it's already in the database. But I've seen enough situations where people actually just throw it in the database and think that the merge purge process is going to take care of it. Enough said. And then the second thing to do with importing is if you don't have the tools to do it yet, you might want to get some help actually doing a comparison. In other words, while the data is still outside, let's say in Excel, you can use tricks with MasterMine, like using the VLOOKUP function, which we rely on heavily in MasterMine data, to take an incoming Excel spreadsheet full of data, actually match it up with GoldMine data using various tricks that I'm not going to go into technically here. But essentially, what we do is create a main contacts report in MasterMine, and then copy our incoming sheet into that database, and actually use the Excel spreadsheet, just the Excel functions, to match up data and see whether, does this record even exist already in the database? If it already exists, is the information that we're bringing in better? Maybe it's even a process where what we're importing is not new records, but importing data that should match with, or to, let's say, update contact to fields, user-defined fields, update SIC fields or such, or demographic fields. If that's the kind of information that's coming in, then doing a matchup, prior to doing an import, of course, makes a lot more sense. Contact to duplications. There is a built-in template for finding duplications in the contact to table. That is an issue you may or may not be aware of in GoldMine data, but CRM data generally, if you've got a one-to-one kind of a subsidiary record, as GoldMine has, you need to have in GoldMine, according to the housekeeping rules, theoretically, there's exactly one contact to record for every contact one record. This is a little bit technical for you, just bear with me for a moment. If you don't have exactly one, if you've got 0 or you've got multiple contact to records, which could happen, due to slippages in the housekeeping process of GoldMine, especially back in the days when DBase was the primary database, but it can happen for other reasons. Then that can cause you some issues. So get that straightened out ideally before you start doing merge purges. And then the last one here, and I'll point to the MasterMine template for that when we come back. So the last one here is a technical issue that has to do with just the difficulty, or actually something that can cause your merge purge wizard to just run off the rails a little bit. The merge purge wizard simply will not work if it finds single quotes in account number fields. So the thing to know is that account numbers are arbitrarily assigned by GoldMine at the time you add new records into GoldMine. And it is certainly possible to have a single quote be in your account number. It shouldn't be, but it happens. And the main way that happens is if you've got a first name or the beginning of the contact name has a single quote in it, that will actually insert a single quote into the account number field. That's not the only way that can happen, but it's by far the most common way. And if that happens, then you need to actually clean that up in your database. So how are you going to clean that up, or how can you detect whether that's an issue? Well, we have a query for finding that. This is actually the text for that query. If you would like to use that query, you can download it. I've loaded it up here as a handout in the GoToWebinar dialog.
It seems like that handout might have a privacy or security setting on it, Rob.
A security setting. Okay, so I don't know anything about that. Did somebody post an issue about that?
Yeah, Steve Pearl did. So no, if people want it, I'll go ahead and I'll load it to our website, or I'll send out a link so people can grab it that way after we unprotect it. That's what I'm looking for.
You're saying it's protected, or are you saying that somebody tried to open it?
It appears that it's protected. They tried to open it, and it's It's opening in a protected view for me right now. So
if you're having that issue, we'll give you some way of dealing with it later on. Request it, and maybe the best thing to do is actually just if you want to get that text for that query, email carnegie@mastermine.net. That's CARNEGY. Oh, sorry, let's just go to support@mastermine.net, and we'll check it out and make sure that it's openable for you and send it on.
There you go.
So that's and that essentially with that query, you can cut and paste that into the query wizard in GoldMine and see what and it will show you a list of records that have a single quote in your account note or a record ID. Okay, so on to the better stuff here. Normalizing. So if you're not familiar with the term normalizing, essentially what it means as far as databases are concerned is making the data across all the records in your database meet certain criteria for how they're supposed to be formatted or how they're supposed to be filled. And the key things, I've made a small list here of important ones that have to do with merging and purging, of course. Starting with standardizing a company name. I mentioned about IBM Corp before. I hope that was kind of intuitively straightforward. But if you think about it, in most organizations, especially organizations that have within your GoldMine rules allow multiple records for a single company. So in other words, you have many different records, contact records, where there's a single company that belong to a single company. One of the processes you want to undertake, probably one of the most simple ones, is use your MasterMine essentially to identify where do we have company names that are not actually standardized. And I'm going to do an example of that here. Let me just switch over to GoldMine again. And this is, I'm going to do this in sort of a crude way here, but this will also give you a chance to kind of see a little MasterMine in action. Excuse me. And so what I'm going to look at is in our demo database here, we've actually got records that have for Global Corporation. Okay, so there's a company that has called Global Corporation that has many different records in it. We can actually go into our search center and look for all the ones that contain the word global. That's kind of an easy thing. And you see if you look down the list here that the vast majority of them say Global Corp. But if we were to sort of look in the list here and it's alphabetizing them, we can see that some of them spelled corporation a little differently. Some of them included an Inc. This one is the Global Corporation. Up at the top here, we even had one that had the word global in it, but it's not actually a member of Global Corporation, or a couple of them there. So those are going to be issues that you're going to want to straighten out. Ideally, what you want to do is if a bunch of records belong together, of course, you want them all to have exactly the same company field. So how are you going to group those together? I'm going to suggest MasterMine and Updater is actually a pretty easy way to do that sort of thing. So if I go ahead and let's just create a main contacts. And again, this is a level of normalization that works for the company name field, but if you think about it, you can apply the same principle for any of the different fields in GoldMine. Your contact type field, your probably your contact type field is the one that's most frequently would come up for this sort of thing. But really anything where you've got a field that you theoretically should just have a few possible values in it, in addition to the company field. So I'm going to pull the company field in here. Now in this case, we've got, of course, everything that's got, well, every company in the database. And I'm interested in the ones that say have global in there. Now I could go in here and literally just uncheck everything and go straight to Global Corp. Just typed GLO. But of course, if I do that, I'm going to miss the other ones. Now alphabetically, there's other ones that are there that are similar, but the one that starts with the global, or that might have the word global in it, that could be someplace else, I'm not going to get those, right? So, but if I were to choose those, that would sort of allow me to focus in on the ones that have Global Corporation in there and go and fix them. I'm going to do a slightly different tactic here. I'm going to look for the word global in the name anywhere at all, and Excel is pretty good at finding those and bringing them together. Now, to some extent, this little trick inside of Excel that's built into the pivot tables, this works kind of nicely. It kind of gives you, it looks through those and sets those up. So that's sort of my second level for kind of filtering them on ones that contain a certain word. That's not going to help you though if there's a set of words that you want to work with. So there's a third layer, which is on the MM Tools webinar in Excel, where, and here I'm going to take that filter off, we could have it actually search through the existing values here, look for anything that includes, let's say, global or globe, or something else that might be appropriate for that. It kind of doesn't matter what it is, but I'll just do those. And this one actually searches through and makes a group in GoldMine. It also allows you to make other parallel groups. So for example, if I wanted to also do other groups, let's say variations on banana for Banana Republic or whatever that might be, we could do those at the same time. And as you can see, that just makes a parallel group as long as the two don't, as long as the two groups are mutually exclusive. And you could go through and actually, in a reasonable action here, identify, let's say, the 5 or 10 top companies that are your customers, where you have multiple contacts at them, and bring them into groups that and work with them as appropriate. Now that, of course, doesn't change your GoldMine data. That's the next part, where we essentially want to go in here and figure out, well, which of these actually do we think belong in Global Corporation? Well, it happens that these 3 do, those 2 don't. This one also, so I'm going to control click on that one also. And I'm going to remake my group. So what I've just done is really just highlight the ones that I want to keep in my Global Corporation group, leaving off the ones that are not in Global Corporation. And I'm going to remake that group there, actually call this Global Corp. That's a little bit a little fancy, but you can see what it does. The main thing is to get all these together in a single view, or in a single group that I can then drill down on. So I'm going to roll up those items into a single row so that I can drill down. Hopefully you're all familiar with the drill down functionality in MasterMine already. If you're not, you've just seen it in action there. And what I'm going to do is, in this case, they just happen to all come in order. Now you might, if this was sorted differently, just to kind of illustrate it, those might be spread out all over that in the column, and it might go down hundreds of rows. So you're going to want to, from among the ones that are the way you want them, you're going to want to actually copy down across all the records that are in there. So I'm going to actually I've selected one that is the proper way that I want it to be in my database. I'm going to double click on the bottom right corner, which essentially makes that copy all the way down to the bottom of my data. Now I don't know which ones got fixed and which didn't. That doesn't really matter to me too much. because I'm just going to run updater on all those to make them all be the same. It's a fairly simple update that I'm doing there. So when I update my data, take that off a test run, I'll update into the database. It just quickly skips past the ones that don't need updating and just does a true update to the ones that do. A little issue came up there, but we're okay. And the GoldMine database, you can see now where it used to have these various different values of it, now is going to have all the same ones. And that's going to help me with my merging, purging in fairly obvious ways. So what I'm going to suggest is you want to kind of spend some time with this to normalize your contact names, but also normalize your if I go over here to GoldMine, normalize your contact type field or your record type if you have that sort of thing. Probably your key fields in GoldMine, which are normally in a location like this, depending on how customized your GoldMine is. And then anything else that's going to factor into either the selection of what gets compared for merge purge purposes, or in the actual comparison itself. Okay, quick switch back here to whoops. I want a different switch back here. There we go. All right, so I mentioned about the company names. I'm going to sort of breeze through these other ones here. Key fields, by the way, when you're fixing your key fields, you don't just need to be looking for typos or different ways of spelling things. You can actually use the internal logic of GoldMine to update ones that are missing data. So for example, sort of a crude example is if it's a client versus a prospect, and you're trying to determine if it's a client versus a prospect, include in your MasterMine report whether that's got a history of sales. If it's got a history of sales, then it's probably a client or a past client, or some one or the other, and you can sort of figure it out. If the history is recent, make it client, and if it's farther back in the past, make it a prospect. These are just sort of key ways of cleaning up your data in addition that also have some effect here in the de-duping issue, de-duping process. Standardizing how you use punctuation, of course, is very important. If you and that actually comes in if you are the kind of company that, excuse me, I accidentally clicked there. If you're the kind of company that, let's say, sells a lot to a particular kind of customer, like golf courses, just a random selection. If your database is full of golf courses and they all have the word golf course in them, that might even be a major portion of the company name. That's going to be an issue when you go to dedupe, especially for things like SoundX, but also for just comparison. If one of them says the full word golf course out in there, and one of them has golf course with a space in between golf and course, and another version of it has just GC as a shortcut, that's going to be an issue when you go to do your merging and purging. And I'm just using that as an example. Your own industry, you probably do have prospects that have a tendency to have similar words in the names. You're going to want to standardize on a particular way of doing that, so that and then use your MasterMine and your updater to make that standardization apply across the database. By the way, I was just doing kind of a blanket change of Global Corp, but if you think about it in that Excel spreadsheet, doing a find and replace is a great way to actually make your data work without actually having to look at every row that's in there. So find, replace in Excel, a lot of people are a lot more familiar with how find and replace works in Excel than with how it might work in actually it doesn't actually work in GoldMine. So that's just a way of applying that functionality that's in Excel to fixing the GoldMine data. Let's see, handling of names. Of course, you might have juniors and so on in your contact names. Field formatting is another major issue with comparing data. If you're going to be comparing phones, you're going to want to make sure that your phone fields are all formatted, to start with a left paren, 3 characters for an activity code, sorry, for a area code, right paren, 3 characters, dash, and then the rest. You know, that's a standard format, and you can use your MasterMine and your updater to standardize those. Likewise, blanks are an issue. So if you're in merge purge, if you're comparing records that let's say the contact type field isn't filled in, that's going to be an issue if the contact type field is partly what you're comparing with, and likewise with phone and so on. That should be fairly obvious. Okay. So using MasterMine templates, the built-in MasterMine templates, and here I'm going to just indicate some of these. I've listed some here, but I want to show you how to find these templates so that they work for you better. I'm going to switch over again to GoldMine, or to our demo location here. So this is our create dialog again. Now the create dialog might look, or you might have noticed it looks a little bit different than the one that you have. Even if you're on version 9, I've changed the dialog a little bit here to manage templates a little bit better. And you will be seeing that in the next couple of days. This will be available for download. This is actually, we haven't decided yet whether this is version 9.1 or just going to be another release of version 9.0. But it looks different, so it's probably going to say version 9.1. But what we wanted to do here was just kind of make it fairly simple. There's some instruction here about how you what you need to do in the simplest kind of reporting, but also our toolkits, as you've probably noticed, are already organized so that a user can find them according to category, as opposed to find them just simply by knowing what name is in the search, or what name they can search for. So, for example, for GoldMine maintenance, there's actually quite a lot of templates built in here. As I'm sure you've heard me say a million times, there's over 150 templates in here. So we've organized them so that for various users, it's relatively easy to find the ones that are relevant to them, and they can actually use search terms to find them. So in this case, we might actually, I want to find the ones that relate to de-duping in particular in order to point these out. So there's ones that just you can run, templates you can run that will just simply show the duplication of company and contact. So they literally, the report itself only pulls records that are duplicated, and then you can sort of take the logical action based on that. And by company and contact, company and phone number, company and zip. So in a sense, this sort of anticipates, or can help you to deal with large sets of the data without actually going through the merge purge wizard, because this actually does require some exact matches and such. Running these, of course, will not resolve your whole merge purge issue. It's just a way of kind of attacking the fairly obvious parts of the data. So that's what those top ones do there. Duplicate contact 2, that's what I was mentioning before about a template that actually finds for you records in GoldMine where the housekeeping didn't work quite the way it should. And if you find that there are contact 2 records in your database, you can use Updater to actually delete the inactive contact 2 record. You want to leave the most current one, because that's where your actual most current data for that contact are, but you don't want to be leaving multiple contact 2 records in there. So that's something to just look at in your maintenance generally. Duplicate main and secondary contacts, that's another one like the top one, where you actually can see duplicate names across both main and secondary, or the additional contacts we call secondary contacts as well. And then this last one here is a new template that you would not actually find in your database right now, or sorry, in your MasterMine right now. This is going to be part of this newer release here that has the new look, where it actually will find duplicate phone numbers across multiple contacts. There's another one that'll be in the new one, which is duplicate email addresses. That kind of operates on the same principle, where because email addresses can be contained in multiple different places, or sorry, where phone numbers can be contained in multiple places in GoldMine, and you want to find those duplicates even if they're not in the same field itself, this will help you to bring those together. So that's just some built-in templates there. I also wanted to indicate we have a couple of cleanup templates that deal with, in this case, bad email addresses. What was the other one? Oh, missing phone number is another. So missing phone number, or missing a contact to record, or missing an email, like where there's no email at all for them. These are all templates that will help you to find records in your GoldMine database that need to be dealt with. And by the way, you may not be able to deal with them on a mass basis that way. In a way, it might just help you to assess the extent of the issue. Although if you're clever about it and creative, you can use MasterMine itself, of course, to get a lot of this stuff cleaned up even before you run your merge purge. Okay, so that is kind of the major portions of MasterMine. The last one here. Okay, so let me switch over back over here. Okay, so this is the last slide as far as tips and tricks aspect of it. I mentioned, of course, using database logic itself to correct your field contents, not just simply seeing. So you're not just dealing with typos and not just filling in what you happen to know off the top of your head. You can actually use the logic of the database to figure out where the holes are and fill them in, and use MasterMine in Excel again in creative ways to make that happen. If you have any difficulties with all this, of course, you can be helped. We can help you through GoToMeeting. Work with this yourself. Another idea is to take relevant information from down in the tabs of GoldMine and put that up at the account level, up at the top of the screen. And that, of course, is really helpful if, again, you have that situation where you are comparing two potentially duplicated records and you want to know which is going to be the survivor, which one's going to be the winner. If one of them contains, let's say, sale information, or contains information that's relevant to deciding which one is your better record, then it's sometimes very useful to have that be up at the top of the screen so that you can actually see it in comparison when you're looking at your side-by-side to decide which one's going to be your winner. And you can use your MasterMine and your Updater to actually update those records at the top of the screen. Incidentally, that also helps to get good information up there for, let's say, salespeople, so that they can see, one of my favorite examples is the, sales to date or last year sales that you had with them. If you actually import that into fields at the top of the screen, that's very helpful. Then there's deleting the what I call these sort of obvious dupes, the ones that are really match up company and contact, match up company and phone number, match up account number activity code and email. Did I say activity code? I meant area code and email, and whatever is logical for you, where you can really tell that they're what I call obvious dupes, meaning if they are exactly the same, then you know for a fact that you want to purge them. I would do that as a sort of a large-scale cleanup before getting down to the individual, show me every pair and let me make a human decision about which one to keep. And then of course I talked about using the groups and filters, so that if you're doing this as an iterative process, then as you think about, I can use look at a cruder set of potential matches first, so that I get those done, and then kind of home in with each iteration on a more exacting kind of a connection or kind of a match, where the more picky you are about what you regard as a match, the fewer records you're going to have to go through one by one to decide whether or not to keep them. Okay, so all of that is a kind of a lot of detail about cleaning up and matching your GoldMine data. I want to, for those of you who've stuck with me up through this point, I appreciate it. I want to let you know that as you are working with your data like this, you are not alone. There are a few things that you can do that will help to manage your own deduping process, your own data management, especially if you're in that situation where your organization has not done any deduping or any data management in a long time. As you can see, this is potentially a very complicated kind of a process. And it's not just complicated because it's technically difficult, but because there's a lot of thinking that has to go on, a lot of decision making that has to happen along the way. And so it's good to have somebody kind of talk you through it, hold your hand through it, or even do the process with you or for you as you make the decisions on your own end about what to do. So all of that is possible with your MasterMine. The first thing I'd recommend is updating to the most current MasterMine software. So if you don't have version 9 of MasterMine yet, be sure and do that. I would wait a couple of days until we post this more recent interface that I've just put up here. That'll certainly happen by Monday, before Monday. So just plan to do an update to version 9. You can get, and if this particular interface isn't all that interesting to you or necessary, then by all means, go ahead and download the one that's there now. But if you are updating from an earlier version of MasterMine, you will need to get a current license. And your version 8 license number, your MasterMine will just simply stop functioning for you once you've installed the newer version of MasterMine. So get a license before you do it, or as you do it. If you're on maintenance, just call us up and we'll give you a new license, or send us an email. Beyond that, we can work with you. We can train you through GoToMeeting to do it. We can actually work with you one-on-one to either on your one-time major cleanup project to get you through that, or we can actually support you over time just as you do the work. So all of that is possible. The options are built into MasterMine there. And that basically is the presentation for today. I would appreciate as you get, and I will take questions when we're done. If you're going to drop off now, though, please fill out the survey. Let us know if this was a useful session for you, if you would like to see it be less technical or more technical, or less detail or more detail. It'd be very helpful for us. It's very helpful for us to have your feedback as we plan our end user webinars. So thank you all very much for the time today. I will take questions, and let's see what Carnegie, let me know if there's anything out there that needs to be addressed.
What do you do about the single quote in the account now? What was the issue with that, and what do you do with it?
So the issue there is that merge purge might just simply not work. It might show you potential merges that don't make any sense at all, or potential matches. And what you do about it is you actually need to replace the account number with one that works. And what I typically will do is use Updater to find all of the records and the sub-records that have that account number in them. This is assuming you can't just delete that account.
Okay.
I mean, if you can just delete the account, that's fine. But if you need to fix it, then I would use Updater to actually go in and find all the records that have that account number at all the different levels, pending, history, the detail records and all that kind of stuff, and just fix it in Excel. I would, for the most part, what I try to do is, replace the apostrophe with just another record, with another character. It could be really anything. I use a pound sign or something, and use Updater to replace them. That's essentially what it is. If users have an issue with that, of course, we can help them through GoToMeeting.
Beautiful. And somebody had asked earlier, but I thought I'd bring it up here. Does GoldMine's merge purge have the capability to compare email addresses, or is that why you're making that template?
To compare them, meaning finding duplicate, just email addresses. So it'll find duplicates.
Or to add it for to the criteria.
That's an interesting question. I have not been asked that, and I don't know.
I didn't see it in the criteria for the merge purge, so
yeah.
to add weights to it. But
what I would do, because email addresses are so special in terms of duplication and the implications of what you might do with them if you've got a match between them, I would run the MasterMine email address email template, the one that actually pulls all emails no matter where they are in GoldMine and brings all the records together for those. And then I would set up a report that shows them descending by the number of occurrence of that email address. And that's just a little setup inside the report. And then from there, make decisions about what you want to do about that. If you've and again, give us a call if you want help with what to do once you've discovered your duplicate email addresses there. In some cases, you might just want to use Updater to delete the second instance of the email addresses if you can figure out which one of them, if you can figure out from the context of the report which one of them is actually the incorrect one. If you can't do that from the context of the report, then there's always, drilling through to the records themselves and looking to see which one's got the wrong one, and actually go through the regular GoldMine interface process to delete the individual emails. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
And that was pretty much. I did hear from somebody that they were able to open up that document you had and just unprotected, and it worked just fine. So may not be issues if anybody wants to download from there, but if you are running into issues, please email support@mastermine.net or sales@mastermine.net. It's a lot easier than trying to figure out how to spell my name.
Although your name is there among the attendees.
Yes, but I think that was it for the questions.
Right. Okay. And yeah, so if that document turns out to actually be protected in some way that we need to change it, we'll fix it. If you are having an issue on your own end, it could be that you've got you could also have security settings that just prevent you from opening Word documents that are sent from outside, or so hard to know. All right. Thank you all very much for working with us today. Glad we were able to, I hope we were able to bring you some useful information, and we look forward to your feedback about how we can do these end user sessions better for you. All right. Thanks everybody, and thank you, Carnegie.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone. Bye.